Charlie, last week in the cold open, you asked me what I'd be surprised if you could do, something you could do. And I said a backflip, and you said you could do a backflip in 1 week. And I said at the next recording, I would ask you about the backflip. Charlie, have you done a backflip?
Yes, of course I've done a backflip. I said I would do it in a week.
I can put in the podcast now?
Well, no, I don't have. I also
it's probably something that's easy for you to do now. So could you quickly do a backflip and record it, and I'll put it in the podcast right here.
Last night I went out for a few beers, and it's snowy here where I live, and I fell on the ground pretty hard after I had a few beers because of the ice, and so I'm injured right now.
Yes.
So I can't.
Interesting. Okay, so at the next recording, when you're all better, I'll request the backflip footage again.
All right. Fair enough, but I will warn you, I have a feeling that my phone camera is going to break.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, that's a shame. Well, how about you start the podcast before I throttle you?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles, along with these always my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. Backflip expert, apparently.
Yep. I'm not an expert, just a man who asked another man to do a backflip, and he said he could do it, and he still has yet to do it. So we'll find out. This is true. We'll find out. I still don't think you can do it, and none of that matters though, because Charlie, this is the show where we pitch new TV shows.
This is the show.
Every single week, new stories, new characters, new worlds, all that fun stuff. And you've got a new title that I'm excited to see and hear about and be a part of. The show that you're about to display before us in our minds. The City of Almost.
The picture I shall paint with my words. The City of Almost. Now, I had some trouble with this title. Just because it's a good title, but it's kind of vague. So I was like, my initial idea was going to be like a Tomorrowland style movie where there's this secret city that exists somewhere in the Midwest that is full of inventions that almost worked and people that were almost successful.
Yeah.
You know? And it was going to be kind of a sitcom based around that idea. And then I was like, you know what? No, I'm not doing that. And then my idea was, well, what if I call it Almost, Indiana? This is like a name of a town. I make it a quirky, small town story about a young woman finding love or something else to annoy Jake, you know?
I see.
Like
Take
a
my
young
sci-fi
woman, and she's
and ruin it again.
Yeah, she's coming to terms with the death of her brother or something, you know?
Not that there's anything wrong with the story you're creating. It's just, it's a waste of the title.
It's a little predictable. It's a little predictable, I think, for me specifically to do that, because I do it so often.
Yeah.
So, I started thinking, like, City of Almost. You know, like, what could that mean? What could it be? It could just be an alien planet called Almost, and it's a giant city world, or something like that. And I was like, you know what? Let's make it a little Earth-based. A little bit more normal, bit reasonable. Very reasonable, actually. So, we're going to introduce you to Lewis Char. Lewis, Charr. Also, secondarily, I knew his first name was going to be Lewis. I couldn't think of a last name, and I realized, like, 89% of the Lewises in popular culture have a C last name, which I find very weird.
Lewis and Clark? I don't think Lewis is... it's the two different people. I don't know.
But still,
Daniel
Lewis and Clark...
Lewis? I can't... I'm sure when I think of a Lewis whose first name is Lewis.
Yeah, Lewis Carroll. Lewis Capaldi. Those are the only two I could come up with.
Okay, thanks.
But that's... Hey, Lewis and Clark, that was another one. Yeah, I just realized LC goes well together a lot of the time, which I don't understand. But Lewis Char, a lounge act singer who just got his big break and is celebrating a casino of the night of June 7th, 1969. Right? So I just, Oh, by the way, this is a movie. It's not a TV show. I realized that the story, while it could have worked as a TV show, I think works a little bit better as a movie, because it's just one night, and everything happens over this one night, or guess one day. But yeah, now we open the movie, we have our main character, in quotation marks, right? Lewis Char, right? He's kind of imagine Neil Patrick Harris style guy. He's charming, he's handsome, he's a song and dance man. You know who would be really good in this, actually? Hugh Jackman. Get him skinny, though, like not absolutely Wolverine enormous Hugh Jackman, like normal person Hugh Jackman. Original X-Men Hugh Jackman, but, like size-wise, not age-wise. He's like chilling in the casino floor of this huge casino, right? He's got a glass of whiskey on the rocks, and he's playing a game of blackjack with the dealer. They're the only two people at the table. He's playing, they're chatting, they're laughing, right? And then Lewis Char looks up at him and kind of gives him the look. And the dealer, who looks to be probably 20 years younger than Lewis, right? The dealer's probably 19, Lewis is in his late 30s. The dealer kind of gives him a similarly flirtatious look, right? And then the two of them are upstairs in Lewis's room, and they're kissing up on each other and making out, and they do the sex things that two dudes do to each other sometimes in Las Vegas hotel rooms.
You got experience with that?
I don't, but I've been told that you do. And so I wanted to hear if you had anything to add to it.
I have never been to Las Vegas. I want to go to Las Vegas. It'd be fun, gamble a little bit.
Dude, we should totally go to Vegas.
I don't want to go to Vegas with you.
Why not? It'd be so much fun to go to Vegas with.
Nah, you're probably a weird guy.
We could record an episode in the dome. The dome? The one that's got faces on it and stuff?
Yeah.
We could record an episode in that and get our faces projected onto it.
I'm sure they're just
waiting
awesome for our call so that we can do a live recording in the dome.
Yeah, obviously. But I would love that. Back to the City of Almost, right? So they have raucous drug-fueled sex in the hotel room, right? The next day they wake up, it's June 8th, 1969. We hear it on the radio. The radio's playing, and it's playing some popular song. I'm thinking something from the Beatles, maybe Eleanor Rigby, because that will come up later in the movie. So, we kind of cut to, right? We cut from them having sex to bam, 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 the alarm clock is going off, right? And we slowly, zoom out of the close-up on the clock, and we see both of them are awake, and they've got coffee and cocaine. And they're just, doing lines and drinking coffee, right? And after a raucous breakfast of cocaine and uppers, the young casino dealer kid, right, reveals that he's actually going to threatening to blackmail Lewis with the fact that he's gay, right? And he needs $30,000 from him. And in 1969, that's a lot of money. Not like now. If I had $30,000 on me right now, I'd blow my nose with it. It's so useless and not anything. But in 1969, $30,000 is a lot of money. So this young casino dealer is like, I'm going to tell everyone in Las Vegas is going to know.
Do you want the
that
conversion? I just looked it up.
That you're gay.
$30,000 in today's money in 1969 is now $264,000. That's a whole lot of money today.
That's a whole lot of money. Also a lot of money in 1969.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nice house with that. Very nice house.
Yeah, you could. Probably buy 8 mansions.
Probably.
Back in the day. Back in the good old days.
Yeah, but all a home to cost was $0.25.
And gasoline was free. We used to clean our houses with it.
Yeah. I used to have some with my coffee in the morning.
Every morning, start me up. Yum, yum, yum. Me and my car drink the same brand. But yeah, Lewis is he's being confronted with this, and this young casino dealer is like, I'm gonna tell everyone you're gay, and that you're, and we'll punch up the dialogue, probably throw in some slurs because edgy.
Okay.
But It's a movie about a drug addict, lounge singer. And so in this kind of drug-fueled haze of rage and confusion and anger and betrayal, Lewis grabs a telephone wire and wraps it around this young casino dealer's neck and chokes him out and strangles him out, right? And I want it to be very similar to Tyrion killing Shay in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, like the very emotional.
Yeah, he does it, and he's like sorry that he's doing it, but he also needs to do it. Like I want Lewis Char to be very conflicted while he's doing it, and afterwards he just leaves the room. Like he just stands up, he doesn't look at the body, he just leaves the room. And he walks down to the lobby, and he's kind of bleary-eyed, and he's got sunglasses on, and his tie is like askew, and his shirt's untucked, and all this. He just looks like a mess. And he bumps into this like steely-nosed, like short, stout, broad lady, you know? She looks to be in like her mid-20s, and she bumps into him, and they kind of take a second and like readjust, and she just gives him the stink eye and walks away. And Lewis, she's wearing like a cool like biker outfit, by the way. And Lewis kind of like just shakes it off, and he goes to the hotel restaurant, and he orders 3 grapefruit, 6 cups of coffee, 4 eggs, 4 slices of toast,
Jesus
10 pieces of bacon, 7 waffles, and 13 cigarettes. He doesn't order the 13 cigarettes, but he smokes 13 cigarettes while consuming all of that food. And after he, consumes it, he's sitting there in his like shirt. He's doing that thing where he hasn't noticed it, but his shirt has pulled up and his belly is exposed. Like just kind of like this pot belly. He's so full of food, and he's like got this final cup of coffee in his hand, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he gets up and he kind of rubs his eyes, stretches, and he's like, I'm back. He kind of gets that like, oh, I'm back, baby. It's showtime. And so it's almost as if he has forgotten what is up in his room waiting for him, right? And so he, gets up, tips the waitress, goes up to his room, right? And he I want the camera to also do this, where he avoids looking in the corner of the room where he knows the body is. Like he can't even address that with his eyes. It's so traumatic for him to see it, that the camera and the character will avoid looking at the body, but maybe we'll see just out of the corner of our eyes, like a foot or an arm or the phone, right? Or something, just to remind us that it's there. He picks up his phone number book, right? He goes over to the rotary phone in the hotel room. He looks through it, right? And we see he finds a number for the roofman. That's just how they're called.
Ooh.
The roofman.
I like it.
And he kind of looks at it a little nervously, and then he starts dialing the number.
Surely it's just a normal roof man.
Yeah, of course.
It's gonna fix your shingles.
He puts the phone to his ears. Match cut to Susan Toole is talking on the phone with her youngest brother, who's probably about 16. And we see that this is the burly, leather-clad, kind of stout woman from before. She's talking with her youngest brother, and she's saying that, you need to keep a low profile. I'll let you know when I find him, right? Mom and Dad kicked him out when they found out he was gay, and he didn't tell any of us where he was going, but I've tracked him down. He's a dealer in Vegas. I was able to find out that information. And so I'm gonna go find him, and I'll call you once I found him, right? And she hangs up the phone. And she starts walking around, and she's kind of, taken aback by the lights and sounds and smells of Vegas, how Vegas looks in the first half of the movie Casino, where it looks awesome. She's kind of taken aback by it, but she, remembers that she has a mission, and so she goes up to the front desk, and she, starts talking with the desk manager, and the desk manager is like, how can I help you? She says, hey, my brother works here. I've been looking for him. He left home, and he didn't tell us where he was going. Would you be able to point me towards him? And she shows him a picture of the brother, and if you hadn't guessed, the brother is the guy that Lewis murdered. Susan Toole's brother was murdered by Lewis Char, and that's like our, main story. Our main conflict. And the desk manager says, oh, well, I know he works here, I've seen him before, but I don't know exactly where he is. You're gonna have to go talk to the floor manager of that wing of the casino and see if he'll be able to point you out to him, or at least, like, tell you where he is. And she says thank you, kind of, not in a rude way, but just kind of like passive. Oh, thanks, whatever. Because it's not very good information. And she, like, stares down the barrel of this, like, gigantic casino floor with, like, hundreds of people all running around drunk and high, and they've got strippers and hookers, and they're all losing money and making money, and just this madness. And she kind of stares it down a little bit. And then she walks into the floor as we cut back to Lewis, and he's on the phone with the roofman. And he is, he's not on the phone with the roofman. He's on the floor with her. Like, she walks by and we keep the camera on him, and he's playing a hand at the table. He still got his sunglasses on. He still looks kind of beat up, but he definitely looks better than he was. And he gets a phone call at the table, right? And if you've ever seen in old movies, when people are at casinos, they, like, bring them the phone on a silver tray, which I always think is so fucking funny.
I want someone to bring a phone to me on a silver tray. It'd be nice.
I usually don't like doing, like, super bougie stuff, it makes me uncomfortable, but I think I would love that.
Yeah.
Bring me a phone on a silver tray while I've got a martini? Hell yeah. I'm not gonna drink it, because martinis are disgusting.
You don't like martinis?
But I'm not a big fan. I'm not the
Clearly
hugest fan of martinis.
Clearly you have not watched enough James Bond movies.
That is true. I have not watched enough James Bond movies. Maybe that's what we'll do when we're in Vegas.
Yeah.
We'll rent out the Dome and we'll play James Bond movies the whole time, drink martinis, and we'll just be shit-faced hammered by the end of the first movie.
Yeah.
But yeah. He gets the phone brought to him, and we hear a voice, right, that says, the roofman will be at your room in the next 20 minutes. Go up there to meet them and explain the situation. Also, the debt for this removal has been incurred by a separate party who I'm told will contact you later today. And Lewis kind of looks at the phone a little perplexed, and he says, okay, thanks. And he hangs it up, and he finishes his hand, and he winks at the dealer, who's a young guy, again, because Lewis never learns. And he goes up to his room. And we see that there are two identical twins standing in front of his room. Leonard and Grant, who are kind of playful and whimsical, right? They've got, like, imagine every identical twin set of brothers in a movie you've ever seen. It's these guys. They're finishing each other's sentences, they've got inside jokes, they've got silly things going on, but they also have, like, a deeply fucked up sense of humor. Because, if you hadn't guessed, they're here to clear the body out of the room and make it disappear. And so after, like, joking around with him, joking around with the body and messing with Lewis, and Lewis is, like, almost going to throw up because of their total disrespect for this corpse, they explain, you know what? This ain't too bad. I've seen way worse in this hotel. We'll get this sorted, and you don't have to worry about it. And so Lewis, like, sits at the desk that they have at a lot of hotel rooms, and in the background we can hear Leonard and Grant sawing through the dead body. We could just hear the sounds of the hacksaws going through bone and body parts and stuff. It's horrible. And just as they're doing that, Lewis leans down, takes another line of coke, and then gets another phone call. Picks up the phone in his room, and on the other line, he hears a man who refers to himself as the Rat King, who explains to him that there'll be a limo.
Levels to this story. I'm trying to keep it up.
The Rat King will have a limo at the front of the hotel in the next 5 minutes, and Lewis better be in it. And Lewis, like, nods his head, And even though he's on the phone and he can't see, he says, yes, sir, and he hangs it up, and he takes another line, and he goes down the front lobby again, right? And he is sweating, right? We could just see, like, beads of sweat forming on his face, and, like, he's dabbing it away, but his hand's shaking, he's, you know, super pale, and he can't control himself, right? Susan finds the floor manager, and she explains that her brother George, you know, it works here, and she's asking where he is, and she shows the picture, and the manager says, huh, that's funny, he told me his name was David, and she, you know, kind of quickly, you know, with quick thinking says, oh, that's his middle name. Oh, okay. You know, because she doesn't want to get her brother fired, even though she's mad at him for running away. And the floor manager explains that George actually went up to Mr. Char's room last night, if you understand what my meaning. They seem to have been fast friends. And she understands what the manager's saying. And she says, well, has he come out? And the manager explains, I haven't seen him all day, but Mr. Char is, you know, he's one of our resident singers, and so we just kind of let him have free run of the place. Well, could you please tell me where he's staying so I can go see if my brother's in his room? Well, I'm afraid that I'm not allowed to give out that information. And the manager walks off, and Susan looks behind him, and she sees that there is an unlocked door in the records office. And we just, you know, see her kind of very casually look over and see that. Meanwhile, as she, like, you know, sees this door, another door opens, the limo door, and Lewis steps in, right? And he gets in the limo, and he lights a cigarette, and he's offered, you know, a glass of wine or whatever, and he says, no, I'll take a extra strong dirty martini, please. And so he gets a martini made for him. It's like a very nice limo. And he's, you know, sweating. He drinks that thing as fast as they make it. Like, it is gone. He, you know, takes a really long drag of his cigarette, and then they arrive. You know, he ashes the cigarette, which the whole thing is basically ash, and it just all falls in one column down onto the ground outside the limo as he steps out, and he sees this gigantic warehouse in the quote-unquote warehouse district. And so he steps in this warehouse, and it's completely dark in there, and he says, hello, Mr. King? And then 6 guards, like, flock around him. You know, 3 on each side. And one of them grabs him by the shoulder, another one grabs him by the other shoulder, and they bring him to this desk that has just been illuminated in the middle of this warehouse, right? And they sit him down. He kind of looks around nervously. He lights another cigarette, and then a man walks out of the darkness, pulling a chair behind him, like a roller chair, puts it down, you know, in front of him, sits down in the chair, and introduces himself as the Rat King. And he explains that he's been keeping an eye on Lewis for a little bit now, a few months. Also, I'm imagining this guy is played by Jack Black, just to give you an idea of what he looks like. I've been keeping an eye on you for a couple of months now, and you got into some trouble last night.
Ooh.
Now, I'm happy to take care of that for you. You know what happens to the best of us. You know, sometimes you just lose control a little bit, but I need a favor in return. And Lewis looks terrified. But,
yeah.
You know.
I was terrified when I was in that same situation.
Yeah, exactly. And before the Rat King, you know, says anything else, he begins to go into this long, melodramatic speech about the nature of power, respect, and money. And how all three allow for a man to shape his reality to better suit himself. How the accumulation of these things can lead to the making of enemies, and how enemies are dealt with. And then he asks Lewis, do you want to make yourself my enemy, Lewis? And Lewis shakes his head, like really fast, and his hand shaking. He takes another really long drag of a cigarette. And the Rat King says, all right, well, now I'll ask you my favor. Will you perform at my 10-year wedding anniversary?
What?
My wife just loves your music. Like, you are just like, you're her favorite singer in the city. And it would really, she'd love it if you were able to perform at our anniversary. And Lewis, like, terrified and, like, taken aback, just like you were, just kind of...
Thought it was gonna be much worse than this.
Yeah, sure.
Get off easy.
I'll do that. And so he shuttled back to the hotel by the limo, where he has another martini that he downs in the limo. He gets out. He's not nearly as nervous, but he has to get back to the hotel so he could get ready for the performance.
Yeah.
And so he goes up to his room, he grabs what he needs, and then he heads back out to the limo. Then we cut to Susan, who's just sneaking out of the records room. I want a lot of match cuts in this, I don't know if you could tell. So, like, him going back into the limo, the door closing will match cut with the door to the records room opening as Susan sneaks out, having found out where Char's room is. So she goes up to floor 4 to find room 36, and she, goes into the room and she notices that the door it's not open, but it's unlocked. And so she slowly unlocks it and goes inside, and she sees these 2 dudes in hazmat gear, right? With 3, like, big plastic boxes and, like, cleaning materials in their hands. And there's this scuffle as she's like, what the fuck is going on? And she, tackles one of them, and the other one, like, they're wrestling on the ground where the other one knocks her in the back of the head. And then they take off their masks. Of course, it's Leonard and George, who are kind of, like, chuckling to themselves. Oh man, that was crazy. I guess we gotta take care of her too, huh? Well, let's get rid of this stuff first, and then we'll, deal with her. Figure out what we have to do. And so she wakes up as she hears the elevator door close with them inside.
Yeah.
Right, and she's tied up. So she takes a little knife out of her boot, and she saws the rope and gets out of the room and runs down the hall to see the elevator, and she sees that it's gone to the roof. And so she gets in the elevator, and she goes up to the roof as well. Cut to Lewis is backstage at this wedding anniversary thing, and it's sort of a wedding, like they're redoing their vows sort of thing. So it is kind of a wedding venue. Yeah. And he's kind of getting nervous. He's slapping himself in the face, getting himself pumped up for this performance. And, a little PA pops their head in. Excuse me, Mr. Char, are you ready to go on? Char looks himself in the mirror, wipes his nose because there's a little bit of cocaine on it, and says, hell yeah. And then he goes out.
Showtime.
And we have the Rat King and his beautiful wife are dancing in the middle of the dance floor by themselves, right? Sort of swinging as you do. And Lewis, walks on stage. He's got a whiskey in one hand. He's got a lit cigarette in the other one. He downs the whiskey and he says, all right, people, let's get ready to go. Or let's do it, or something, just like, let's get this show started. And that's when the curtains behind him open, and there's a full band, and Lewis starts singing a lounge-inspired rendition of Eleanor Rigby, which is the Rat King's wife's favorite song. And so he's singing that, and meanwhile, we're cutting back and forth between the dancing of the Rat King, Lewis singing, and Susan, who has gotten to the roof, and she sees the 2 guys, the roofmen, right? And what they're doing is they're attaching lines to the 3 boxes filled with the dead body, and a helicopter is going to fly by, and they're going to hook on the body and fly it away to get rid of the evidence. That's why they call them the roofmen, is because they get rid of bodies by going from the roof, not through the front door. And so she gets up onto the roof, she sees them, they're like latching it up, but the helicopter is like, you can see it, but it's not there yet, and she runs over and she starts walloping them, and there's this like awesome fight sequence that is like we're cutting between Susan, Kit, kicking the shit out of the roofman, and like Lewis just singing his heart out and sweat's running down his face, and he's just got this like super passionate way of singing. And the Rat King, of course, doing like a spin with his wife and all this stuff. And eventually, like, Susan knocks out the last, like, the 2 roofmen, right, in the helicopter, right, as it, you know, it flies by, sees her, she looks up at it, and the helicopter turns away, right? She opens up the boxes, and she sees what she knew was in there, but just so desperately wanted not to be in there. Which is, of course, the body of her brother George, right? And she kind of, you know, sits on the top of the roof and weeps, right? As the end of Eleanor Rigby plays, right? In the background. Then we cut back to the wedding, right? Lewis has gotten off stage. He's getting a drink at the bar. The Rat King comes up to him and shakes his hand and says, "Oh man, you were great. You were amazing. Thank you so much. You've made this a night that she's never gonna forget, you know?" And then he slips him $200 into his hand, says, "For the cab home." They both kind of chuckle. Lewis steps outside. He takes a drag of a cigarette. He kind of breathes the fresh midnight air. And he's so happy that he's gotten away with it, you know? And then the cops come. You know, we hear the sirens and the lights, and they pull up. And there are like 2 or 3 police cruisers. And they say, "Lewis Char, yes, you're under arrest for the murder of George Toole." And they're like, who's like, "What? Who's George Toole?" And they show him the photo, right, of Susan's brother. And he, you know, is, you know, distraught and anxious and angry, but he also kind of takes it. He's like, "Oh, well, you know, almost."
Such is life.
He takes a drag of a city. Or takes a drag of a cigarette, puts it out, looks at him, you know, almost. Gets in the car, and the cops drive away.
Ooh.
And we see Susan. She's sitting on her motorcycle. She just watched him get arrested. And she takes one look at the city, and then drives off into the sunset, right? And we see her driving, right? Imagine the final shot of the movie. We're looking down at the highway that leaves Las Vegas. She's driving away towards the camera, drives past us. Camera moves up, and we see the "You're welcome to Las Vegas" sign now reads "The City of Almost."
Oh.
And that's the end of the movie.
Credits roll. I liked it. I like that, Charlie. I was wondering where it was going. I was not really sure for most of it, but now that I've got the whole thing, I like it a lot. That's one of my favorites that you've done, I think, so far.
Yeah, right?
Top. I don't know. I was gonna say top 10, but you've had a lot of pitches that were good, so I'm not sure. Maybe top 20 at least, but it's definitely in the top whatever.
Yeah, I was happy with it. And here's the fun thing: I wrote the idea. Like, okay, in my phone, I wrote the notes because initially it was different. Initially, he wasn't gay. In my phone, I wrote the notes: Frank Sinatra-style singer who murders a young waiter who tries to blackmail him and spends a drug-fueled night trying to cover up the murder.
Yeah, it kind of feels very like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas-y, where like it's just a kind of a mess in the middle.
Exactly. And that was kind of because I wanted it to be sort of similar to when you're on a night out with the boys, you know?
Yeah. Just a
And
drunken.
it's just like it goes off the rails.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. That was a lot of fun. Thank you, Charlie, for bringing us your wonderful pitch here.
I think I need to do this writing, by the way I wrote this more often, because I wrote it all in one sitting on my bed after you texted me saying you forgot the recording session, because I also forgot that recording session.
I figured because I was on the call and I never saw you come up on it.
Yeah.
For the audience's knowledge, we were supposed to record a couple days ago, and neither of us showed up to it as a coincidence. And then I showed up like 20 minutes late to it, and he wasn't there. So. That is part of the. That's part of the movie magic of the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. Yeah. Speaking of behind the scenes, Charlie, could you send us out?
Oh, of course. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host. Shows along with me has always been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please tell a friend. Wait. If you
Tell
like
dog,
what you heard
to
here and you
cat,
want to hear
all
more,
that stuff.
please leave a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat. Remember, we'll be here next week with a brand new television series for you to imagine and enjoy. I forgot the subscribe and leave a like part,
I
so
see,
I had to
yes,
go back
yes,
and redo
all
it.
those things.
Big, important stuff.
But I've got to get a title, Charlie. What's my numbers?
Oh, shit. What's your title? Let's find out.
If you're new to this, every week we switch off with giving each other titles, and the other person has to make the pitch for the next week. And Charlie has a list of them in front of him.
I do.
With how many titles?
1 sec. I have the list here. Here we go. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 titles left.
Oh, he's got 4 titles, so I'm going to pick 1 through 4. I'm going to go with 2.
Yeah. 2? All right. I actually really like this title, and I think
Can I change my pick now?
No. Only, actually,
4.
yes, you can. If you, 4? The backup plan. How fucking apt
Hell yeah.
is that?
I love this so much.
That was, oh my god, dude, that was awesome.
The backup plan. As soon as you said that you liked the title, I'm like, I gotta switch it right now.
Do you want to know what the title is? Because I think you would have liked it too. Yeah, you will.
If you can remember later that I picked this one first and then switched it, do so.
Yeah.
But if you can't, whatever, who cares?
I'm gonna write
backup plan.
switch.
That's what I'm coming up with next
backup
week.
plan.
So if you want to hear the backup plan, come to the next, look at your feed, follow some, the podcast stuff, and you'll see it. It'll be there, the backup plan.
Exactly. It's gonna be great. Not next week, but the week after, actually. Because next week we're doing episode 2A.
If you're new, every 10 episodes, we do a thing where we come up with a pitch, a TV show, off the top of our heads every 10 episodes. And next week is the 10th episode, so you'll experience that. So if you want the backup plan, it's not next episode, it's the one after that. But until then, we will see you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.